On November 22, 1963, John F. Kennedy was killed when three shots were fired as he was traveling in the presidential motorcade in Dallas. He was struck in the head and throat, but the third shot missed. Ambulances arrived quickly, but it was too late. At 1 p.m., America found their commander-in-chief was dead. After hundreds of studies and 8 investigations by the FBI and Warren Commission, it was concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald was the assassin who was murdered before trial. The news sent a shock throughout America, and no one was truly prepared for the way the event would affect the future of their country. The assassination of John F. Kennedy was a pivotal event in United States history that changed international and domestic policy, emotionally affected U.S. citizens, and sparked a Kennedy family legacy in politics. This is how the JFK assassination affected America, in plain English. International policy. The major international event during Kennedy's time in office was the Vietnam War. Under Kennedy, the United States policy was to give full support to the French in their struggle against communist rebellions in Vietnam. However, after visiting Vietnam, he proclaimed that weapons alone could not stop the communists from a full takeover in Southeast Asia, but it was very necessary to give people anti-communistic thoughts. Therefore, in December 1961, Kennedy signed a declaration and sent American troops to Southeast Asia to aid the military, but was strict when saying that the troops weren't there for actual combat. He kept the troops in Vietnam and continued to send more. Right before he was assassinated, the concern of his country grew, so he asked Congress to withdraw the troops. Lyndon B. Johnson, Kennedy's successor from Stonewall, Texas, overruled Kennedy's withdrawal request and felt it was necessary to fulfill our promise of helping Southeast Asia. At that point, when North Vietnam began attacking U.S. naval vessels, Johnson requested the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. The Gulf of Tonkin Resolution gave him any measures necessary to fight communism. This led to Johnson sending the first fighting ground troops in 1956, making it an American war. This was a major change in America's government because Kennedy's approach was that he didn't want U.S. soldiers in any combat. They were just there to aid. Domestic policy. During Kennedy's presidency, he tried to spread prosperity, but had failed to do so before he died. His idea of the new frontier proposed multiple ambiguous reforms that called for tariff reductions, tax cuts, and more to promote economic growth. As a tribute to Kennedy, Johnson took his proposals and turned them into laws, creating what is known as the Great Society.
The dream of conquering the vastness of space, the dream of partnership across the Atlantic and across the Pacific as well, the dream of a Peace Corps in less developed nations, the dream of education for all of our children, the dream of jobs for all who seek them and need them, the dream of care for our elderly, the dream of an all-out attack on mental illness, and above all, the dream of equal rights for all Americans, whatever their race or color. These and other American dreams have been vitalized by his drive and by his dedication. And now the ideas and the ideals which he so nobly represented must and will be translated into effective action.
One of the first programs was the Tax Reform Act, which cut tax bills leading to a decade of prosperity. The Economic Opportunity Act worked to eliminate and prevent future poverty through an array of new educational, employment, housing, and healthcare programs. The Higher Education Program provided funds to improve schools and gave away scholarships and loans for low-income families to get an education. The Equal Opportunity Act created a preschool program for young children. Medicare and Medicaid provided medical care for the elderly and poor. The Housing Act of 1968 constructed hundreds of affordable homes. The new frontier raised hopes of many, but the Great Society actually affected millions. Johnson's programs gave him popularity with the public, leading him to winning the 1964 election easily. Another proposal by Kennedy that was followed through by Johnson was the Civil Rights Act. Written by the Kennedy administration, this bill prohibited the acts of discrimination by race, religion, and gender. It was then followed by the Voting Rights Act of 1965, in which the government sent examiners where obvious discrimination was taking place to register voters. This made a significant increase in African American voters in the South thanks to Kennedy's idea and Johnson's determination. Radical. Social impact. Kennedy was a young, charismatic president with a beautiful wife and 2 children, the model American family. Therefore, citizens were devastated when their leader was assassinated. As Jacqueline Kennedy said, he belonged to the people. The casket was left in the Capitol Rotunda, and about 250,000 citizens paid their respects, proving his popularity. After his wake, thousands of people lined the streets of Washington to watch a horse-drawn procession bring Kennedy's body from the Capitol Rotunda to St. Matthew's Catholic Cathedral. In his honor, he was buried at Arlington National Cemetery with an eternal flame. During the first year, an average of 3,000 people an hour visited his memorial. On the weekends, a total of 50,000 people went to the burial to pay their respects. In addition to being well-liked and remembered by the American people, he was internationally respected when 99 leaders of other nations attended Arlington National Cemetery in his honor. The amount of people in attendance reflects the emotional impact the assassination had on the people of America. Kennedy family legacy. Kennedy's dad, Joseph, had always wanted his family involved in politics, and often taught his children before Joseph Jr. was killed in war. The assassination of JFK opened up an opportunity for his brother Robert to take part in politics. However, after being a strong Democratic running mate in the 1968 election, he was also assassinated. The tragedy that fell upon the family provided them with a fame and a spotlight. Different members of the family capitalized on the attention in different ways. Some entered the political field, despite the lack of good luck, aka the Kennedy curse. Some wrote books, and others were unwillingly stuck in the public eye forever. The fame of the Kennedy family shows the trust and expectations the citizens of America had for each member, since John and Robert were so well-liked and successful. So let's recap. On November 22nd, 1963, John F. Kennedy was killed when traveling in a presidential motorcade in Dallas. The assassination brought America some of the biggest challenges it would face, dealing with international and domestic policy, emotions of U.S. citizens, and the emergence of a new famous family. We're Sydney, Lisa, and Brian, and this is how the JFK assassination affected America, in plain English.